Can you tell me one or two things that authors should not do when they approach their book cover designer?
Don't get in touch with them a week before you need something. Be in touch with them on time, please. Just for the fact that we don't want to disappoint you and you can get your stuff on time. That is one. Then the second thing is
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Woohoo!
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Today I have a very special guest. This is Mariska Mas from Rubre Art. She's a book cover designer and she has agreed to come on the show and tell me all about the things that I have no idea about when it comes to book cover design. Where are you? Because I think it's cool that you're joining me from so far away.
Hi, Esther. Thank you for having me. And currently, I'm in the Netherlands, where is my hometown as well. So it's a bit further than America, but through the lovely digital age, we are able to have this podcast right now.
That's wonderful. I have never been to the Netherlands, but
it's very tiny. It depends if you like rainy weather and such, you can definitely go. But if you skip out on it, also fine.
Let's begin with your book design. How did you get started in book design? Did you go to school for it? How did that even happen?
For me, it was a natural flow. I was a huge bookworm. I wanted to make money with my art because I didn't want the stereotype of the artist living underneath the bridge. When I first had the opportunity to do an internship, I was like, okay, how can I combine this? I love publishing. I love books. So I got my first internship at a publishing house. From there, I continued. I started on social media and advertising, and they let me do my first book cover, my first interior. And after that internship ended, it went so well that they actually asked me to stay on. And I became their in-house designer. Now I'm working with book boxes, such as the Bookish Box, and even some others. It's really nice to see how it has gone in the last 4 years.
That's fantastic. That's like every artist's dream is for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I got my way in and then put the work in and it went really well. Truthfully, publishing is a lot about connections. Once you have an in and people like you get a lot of referrals. Because I think from the publishing house, I went to a third-party agency that put me in contact with indie authors and they referred me to another book box. I went on from there like a snowball effect.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's fantastic. I saw one of your posts on Instagram and you said that you don't just do traditional books. You also do indie books. And I thought that was interesting.
I started working with traditional publishing houses and I really loved that. And then when I got the opportunity to work with indie authors, I realized how lovely it was to have that contact with the author themselves and to make their vision become a reality. It's very great, but most of the time you're working with the publisher and you don't get as much contact with the author. For me, it was like, I really want to have that personal connection, that personal contact. And luckily now I have the opportunity to just have offer clients who I talk directly to, who know their story, who love it, and to bring their realities to life.
That's amazing. One of my fears, I haven't published a book yet, right? But one of my fears is that the cover will be botched. Because you read some books and they have a description of what the main character looks like. Oh, she has brown hair and he was tall with blonde hair or whatever. And then the cover has like a blue-eyed girl and this short, like, and it doesn't match and it's so frustrating.
I do have to say that is the ultimate worst experience you can have, but that is also why I work with the offers. Because if I show up with a blonde-haired girl or whatever, they're like, what the hell have you done? This is not my vision at all. For that fear, I also make sure to always send in a survey. So I have a survey with a ton of questions. Just give me all your details, give me your specs, give me important symbols, important meanings. Send me Pinterest boards just so that I can get the vision that they're implementing. So that stuff doesn't happen, because I've heard horror stories of book boxes just picking some stuff out without having read the books and then the readers just being like, what did you do? Like, yeah, we're trying not to do that with me, at least. So you cross your T's, dot your I's, you make sure you have all the information beforehand and make several mock-up rounds and contact just to not have that happen.
That's wonderful. That's good to know that you take care of that. How much can someone expect to be paying? Because obviously you're doing a lot of work and it's not free. Yeah. If you're receiving a book from an indie author, then the scale of prices that you charge.
Truthfully, It all depends. Personally, I know I'm in the mid/higher range, but the reason for that is I do all my custom illustrations myself.
Mm.
So that takes a lot more time than stock images and putting everything together. And you have free mock-ups that you can start with. You have all the revision rounds, and that can easily take, if a really quick cover, which doesn't happen often, is 10 hours. But if the cover takes way longer, way more details, and can go up to 20 plus, or even more. So that's all calculated in. And then my simplistic covers start at $425, and my detailed ones at $675. I know that's more higher range, mid range, but it doesn't have to be expensive having a cover. It is very much of like, what can you afford? What do you want? And what are your expectations? Because I know there are a lot of pre-made covers out there as well. People who are selling gorgeous pre-made covers for $200 or less. And if you have an image in mind that you love and you can just find a picture or a pre-made cover that's already with it, it can be a great budget option as well. Or you have people on Fiverr giving away options. It all depends on what your budget is and what you're comfortable with paying. So don't be afraid to pick and choose, or wait a bit, or ask for quotes and compare. Because there are so many artists out there, there has to be one that matches with whatever your needs are.
I've decided to dive into illustrating, which always looks easy, and then you try it and it's not. Quit. What sort of bad covers have you seen from people who do it themselves?
Well, I'm not gonna name names
Right.
because that's a really shitty thing to do. But I have seen covers where I'm like, it's such a shame that this is the cover, because the story inside might be absolutely amazing. But I know that at least 75% of the readers will not pick it up because they don't trust the inside of it when it has a cover like that. It can be anything from really bad typography. They have like a gorgeous image, but the typography just looks like it's from a Word document in 2002. Or they have the photo bashing, which just looks like a collage, which does not make sense. So that is just sometimes just really, really sad. The fact that it doesn't look professional is the reason that you might lose out on money. So the investment of a proper cover is really recommended to make sure that you get the sales in the end, because people are going to be turned off. We all say don't judge a book by its cover, but we all do. When I was doing my senior thesis on starting up this whole book design company, I was doing research on covers, and it was literally statistically shown that an author who had revamped their covers 10 years later to match the current market had an increased amount of sales because of the fact that they now match the thing again. So not even did she have to republish a new series, she just had to put a new cover on it, and it worked great. And sadly enough, people are visual buying, so it is very important.
I was in the library last night just looking around. My kids were there in the little kids section. I was just browsing. So many books. I saw the title and the cover, just nope, 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 nope. Yeah, overloved.
The market is so oversaturated. If you don't get somebody's attention in like 7 seconds, you're screwed. One image has to keep their attention for long enough for them to even want to turn it around and read the blurb. If you can't afford a good book cover, if you don't have one, it automatically negatively can impact your book. I know on Kindle, it's a bit less because people are like, oh yeah, it's Kindle limited, it's free, I'm going to read it anyway. Or like they really like the genre and they will be fine. But with physical books, especially on Amazon or in the store, you have to be able to pick the attention from one glance.
Well, and that's hard because you have to have it look really good and be eye-catching when it's tiny for when they're scrolling, and then when it's larger when they're seeing the physical copy.
That's especially hard with typography. You have to make sure that both big and small, it is readable enough. And I think you can see now as well as a trend in the current markets is that there are a lot of more simplistic commerce coming out. I'm not saying like there's less photo bashing, there's way more illustrated elements, which makes the typography easier to spell because they do less fancy graphics on it. I know Story Rappers, for instance, which is an amazing cover artist I always look up to. She is doing great things with typography right now. And it's just the illustrations are super fancy, but the font is simple, readable, and it sticks out. That is a great way to do it with tiny images.
Interesting. I love the black letter font, the old timey, but it would be like, it would be
Yes.
suicide on a little icon, huh?
I know that the black letters depend. Medieval letters are very hard to do in a cover. Once, like one big one, and then have it match with the medieval elements, sure. But I think most often what people are now using is either serif or really curly letters that give it an actual bit of pizzazz, or big, bold, fat letters. Letters and typography, this can change so much in a genre. If you just look at the typography or title pages, you can already depict which genre the book is, which is kind of funny to me as well.
Sometimes people put a big photo collage on their cover, and then it's not really telling a story, right? So that to me says that when you design your covers, you're trying to tell the story through the few inches of space that you have, right? On your Instagram, you have a picture, and I didn't notice it at first. I was scrolling through trying to learn more about you before this interview, and I saw um, the Bride of the Spirit, or the Spirit's Bride, an image
Oh
with a
yeah, that
beautiful
one.
girl. Saw it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I clicked on it and watched the video, and then I looked at it again. Next to her is this blue glowing man, like an affectionate lover next to her. And I thought, that looks so cool. It's like doomed love. What are they gonna do? It drew me in completely just from that one image when I really got a good look at it. So, how do you tell the story on the cover? Do you have to read the entire story? What do you do for that?
Okay. Sadly enough, for the one that you're describing is one of my portfolio pieces. At the time when I started out doing the whole cover design, I didn't have enough gigs yet, so I had to make my own covers. I'm a huge fan of the Married to Magic novels by Elise Kova, and I really loved the fantasy lover with the girl. My favorite book trope. So I was like, let me make some covers for that. So I made Satyr's Muse, I made The Spirit's Bride, and if I ever have the time, I'll finish. I think it was called The Selkie's Bride or something, or The Siren's Bride. But normally when I work with an author, I make sure to make them give me the synopsis. So at least I know how the book starts and how the book finishes. I hate spoilers, but I need it for my work. It's sad if I want to read the book afterwards, but it's of great help to picture the whole story. So I make sure I have that, and then I make sure to offer to tell me key elements. For instance, I think in the Red Queen, you have this crown, which is an amazing symbol. It's very important. I always make sure to pick those elements out. I also get like, what kind of vibe do you want the book to give? You can have fantasy romance, fantasy fluff pieces, and see dark romance. And you do not want to confuse the two covers. So I always make sure to have the whole synopsis, what kind of feeling they want, and elements that are very important. And most of the time, I look at what covers match with the book. The author sends me free options of covers that they love, and I look at like, hey, what style are they doing? And from all those little elements, which are a lot, I eventually make free mock-ups. And it's a lot of research. It is a lot of eclecticism, experience I already have, and a lot of mixing and matching. The mock-up phase, which is so broad. I make designs which are super simple or very detailed, and then the author can say whatever they want, and we go from there. They just send me the form, I do the work, and they get the mock-ups. They don't see all the behind the scenes chaos of my brain going on.
Yeah.
They just get the end result.
How long does it take you to do a complicated mock-up?
So I think my mock-up phase normally takes, from research to finish, take me 4 hours. And that is quite quick because my mock-ups are a bit stickman based because they're mostly just for composition. So there are no details yet. The typography is fully finished. It's laid out. Like, we're choosing this typography because it's a very important element of the cover. So I get free typography options with free base layout options. I did a warm-blooded book cover, which I really love, for sorry, I'm losing the name. It was Jake Kong or Jake Green, because I work with two J's, so please don't murder me. But I worked on Warm Blooded, which was really fun. It was a superhero book, and it had to be queer. So we made three different options. We had one option of the city played a big role, the two superheroes played a big role, and they really wanted the high stakes to be involved. One was with the two cities on top and the characters falling through it. Another one was an Earth globe of the two cities and the two characters sitting on top. Another one was the stereotypical superhero pose with them back to back with huge typography on top. It is rough layouts with base typography. They can be like, hey, I love the typography for option 1, but I like the characters of option 2, but I want the city elements of option 3. Then we bash it all together. From there, we go on to add the details. We're not adding in any details because there's so many changes still going on.
Are you scared when you send the mock-ups to the client? I would be scared.
I think I made a video about this, I think like 2 weeks ago, where I was like, me whenever I send my mock-ups to the reader and be like, ooh, will they like it this time around? Will they not like it? They always like it, or at least most of the time they do. I think I have like 1 in 20 clients who is like, this is not what I imagined at all. And most of the time, you just have a video call or you have another chat or you revisit the form that they sent you and you restart from scratch. And the second time, they're happy. But yeah, always nervous, most of the time happy. And I always make sure that my boyfriend sees my designs before I send them out, just to pick out any really weird things. He's not a designer at all, but it's always good to have a second set of eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at the screen for hours on end, and I just don't see the forest for the trees anymore.
So, what would be the most helpful thing for an author with a specific cover in mind? Would it be helpful if I were to be like, hey, I'm ready for my book cover. I'm going to self publish. Here, I have these 20 drawings that I did. Look at them and maybe push them together in a creative way. Would that be helpful or would that be a hindrance?
I think it's a bit of both. It is helpful for the fact that you get a great amount of inspiration.
Mm.
It can be a hindrance once the author becomes too attached and then isn't able to let go of the design. If the design is perfect and nothing needs to be changed, it will be made sellable. But otherwise, it really depends what they think. Is where you're this close to your project and your designer says like, hey, I wouldn't recommend doing A, B, and C because it might not make your book sellable, or I wouldn't recommend this because it wouldn't match the layout or the current trends. And an author says like, but I really want this. Then it can become a bit of a hindrance because truthfully, as a designer, you have the best in mind for your offer, for the project. And you do, of course, want to take as much as possible from offers. Like I have had Pinterest boards. I've had great amounts of images, and most of the time I'm able to incorporate it in such a way, but also with a kind of twist or a different aspect just to make it marketable. Because yes, 20 drawings are very lovely. You just need to be able to kill your darlings once the time comes to it. And that's a bit sad to say, but we're all meaning the best for you. And if that means scrapping some things because they're not as marketable as you wish they are,
Yeah, that's supposed to be our whole motto, kill your darlings, right?
if the offer is really like, no, I don't want it, I want it exactly like this, you will do it nonetheless because they're a paying client. They get the end say. The only thing you can do is like, hey, can you not put my name on it, depending on the project. But most of the time, it ends all well, and otherwise, you just do what they want anyway because it's their book, their project. If they're happy with it, that's the most important thing.
Wow.
You're not gonna go, but
Mhm. Wow.
it's still client is king. But you can give them suggestions.
What are some patterns that you've noticed from authors who pass you their books? Any consistent, like, any things?
I think the one thing that consistently stuck out to me is that a lot of authors are very excited to get started, but they don't plan that far in advance. Which is like they really want their book to be out, but they contact their designer. Like I had a request in my inbox like yesterday, which said like, "Oh, I want my book to be done in this end of December and maybe January at the latest." And that doesn't happen that often, but like people are requesting their covers like 2 months for release or a month before release. And it's such a shame because your cover is your most marketable thing. By waiting until your book is finished and then to request a cover, it can take way longer because currently I think I'm booked out until like May. So people coming in at the last minute will have to wait until May and only can then start marketing their book. A lot of cover artists, depending on who you're contacting, can easily be booked out months in advance. And for your cover, you don't need to have your story finished yet. So it's smarter to contact when you have a clear idea of your book and what it's going to be about. Contact your cover designer, see whether they're able to fit you in, and then start marketing as early as possible because your cover is your most marketable option that you have. So I think what I most of the time see is sadly enough offers that request their covers too late. Well, they could have started way earlier to even start their marketing.
Would there be an issue with the size of the book? If would that alter the the image that you created for it?
It depends. Like I always make sure I have a lot of extra margins on the outside. But with dimension size, I always ask or prefer that they give me a definitive size. So like 8 by 5 inches, 8.5 by 5.5 inches. That is something that authors most of the time can already give because it's the most basic book sizes that there are. Spine wise, that is something you can't finalize until you have the final page count, which can be way longer in the future when you do interior formatting. So what I always do with the spine is I make sure that all my designs are adjustable for the spine. So if the book is 400 pages or 600 pages in the end, that will be adjustable because it's kind of easy to do depending on the design that you make. Sizing, as I mentioned wise, can be quite annoying to change later on depending on how big the one changes. Spine is fine though, but it depends on which cover designer you're working for. I don't make an issue about it, but I do know that some cover artists out there need a definitive page number before they even make the whole wrap. Discuss that with your cover artist, talk with them about it. That is all part of the intake process anyway. Even before you start a project with someone, you can always ask these questions and see if you're a match.
Wow. What are some signs to an author that they are not a good match with a book designer that maybe they always really loved, but are only now starting to hire?
It depends. I would be very careful before the starting process because most of the time with cover artists, we have a non refundable deposit and it's kind of hard to back out of because people have contracts, they take in time, they book out a slot, especially when you're booking in advance. The non-refundable deposit is basically meant to cover their income. If you're back out at the last second because you don't feel like you're a match, they're losing income, hence a non-refundable deposit. So my biggest advice would be make sure in advance that you're sure that this is the cover artist for you. Make sure that the genres they do match with your book. Do they make books that look like the ones you're writing? Are they clear in the talking process? Are they happy to answer questions? Does their timing match you? Look for reviews, especially ask around and other authors that you know. And if they have worked with artists before or cover artists, ask what they think of them. Peer reviews are immensely helpful because they've directly worked with the person that you might want to work with. I think no author would mind if you go into their DMs and ask, hey, I saw you worked with ABC. What did you think of them? Were they nice? Were they not nice? Worst that can happen is that they don't respond. Best case, you get an honest review about it. People are marketing themselves. You can't fully trust what everybody puts on the internet because they put their best side on. As long as their portfolio matches with what you like to write and what you want to have, if they have good peer reviews from people that you know, and if you feel like the communication that you're having with that cover artist feels good from start to finish and you're comfortable enough, then you can put down the deposit and see how it goes. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. Less likely if you've done your research. You lose your deposit, but that is a thing that you come across later, and not every business thing will go well. Of course, you hope for the best, but it's like worst case. You're not hoping for that. And even if it does happen, either get a new artist or go forth with what you have. But that is like worst case scenario, which you're not hoping for, and you'll see it when that happens. But hopefully, after you do your research, it all went well. You have a lovely artist and a lovely cover.
Wow. I didn't know that there would be a deposit, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it is a lot of things. Like I know some people ask like 30%, some people ask 50%. Some artists also allow payment options, so you don't have to pay everything up front. You can pay 50% now, 50% later, or even 25%. So even if you don't have the full budget right now, you can also discuss that with an artist and see what they're open to. I personally almost always do 50% upfront and 50% at the end. And when the offer makes a final payment, they get the final files. That can be a 6 months difference in between those times. So that also helps with payments.
Wow.
Or more flexible if they request.
Mhm. So, when should someone hire their cover designer? Should it be when they're finished writing the book and it's already final drafted? It needs to be before they start marketing it, right? You may
Yeah.
think. But
Mhm.
let's say they're in the second draft and they're still switching things around. Should they hire the designer then? Or should they hire it when they're finishing up the final draft?
I think it depends on how sure you are that your story will stay the same as core. So let's say, for instance, you have the Shadow and Bone covers. You have this really lovely big deer with the city rising up. That's the one that we all know. How likely is it that that deer will get tossed out of the story during your editing phase, or that the city will not be there anymore? That is also the thing. Like, how likely is it that the elements that you want in your cover are going to be kicked out? Do you want a lot of details? Then maybe wait a bit more, because then it can be possible that things will get judged around and that you have to pay extra for changes. But if you know you want a more simplistic covers with the core element, which will stay the same throughout the whole book, go for it. So it depends on what kind of cover you want, how likely it is that the elements of your cover are still going to change, and how comfortable you are yourself with already making such a big purchase in advance of time. I know some people are really happy to go into marketing, they're really excited to have it done. That is great for them. But if you're more cautious and you want to have everything figured out until the tippy toes, then wait a bit more. You can market way more at the end, but it all depends on what you're comfortable with. Because it is a big investment and you want it to go well. So also trust your gut.
Now I'm thinking I need to send my book in for a cover. You also do the interior
Yeah.
designs. I don't remember what those are called.
hmm I do the interior formatting. So that's when you have your nicely laid out Word document. I make sure that it's print ready. I make sure it looks nice with the chapter headers, with illustrations, that all the text is nice and ready to go for print. You just send it into KDP, Ingram, or whatever printer that you're using.
I saw in one of your videos that you did some designs on the first few pages around the edges. What is that called, and how does that affect the quality of the book?
What I always tend to do is add a chapter page art. That could be anything from simple icons like a crest that matches with the book or a certain flower to full background illustrations or a nice frame wrapped with roses and lilies. It depends on what the author wants, but readers really love the extra thing. It doesn't make printing more expensive. Printing is the same cost, but the reader gets the extra experience of having something special within their book. Because in currently day and age, special editions are a really big thing. So why don't make your own paperback a little bit more special by adding something that is not more expensive to print? The cost is the same, but the reward is so much bigger because you get the appreciation from your readers and they're more likely to share it online.
So the printing cost is the same. Do you charge a bit extra for that?
Me personally, I don't, because all my packages are already included with the illustrations. I love adding it so much into book design. That's the only thing I do. In theory, I could do simpler designs, but I was like, no, the publishing industry needs to be prettier. I'm going to do that by myself. So my whole branding is basically by doing illustrated book design, both inside and out, which I kind of made my own niche, which I'm really happy with.
Well, I was looking at your social media, and you have just nailed the branding, like on the head repeatedly. It looks superb, very consistent, unique. It's I was looking at it and just thinking, gosh, I need to take some of her advice because she's got it down.
My college professors would be really happy to hear that because I did have a minor in marketing. I did a minor in entrepreneurship, in international publishing, in digital media and marketing. They basically teach you how to start a company and how to make it marketable. Without that, I would have still been the artist under the bridge.
What is something that you don't like doing as a book cover artist?
Oh, I have that quite easy. It's line checking. I love doing the illustrations. I love making the text look pretty, but I despise the line checking. All I'm doing is scrolling through the book and checking all the hyphenations and all the line spacing throughout the book to make sure that it looks nice. That is about 30 lines per page on a 400-page book. That's 12,000 lines. I'm scanning for 2 hours to make sure nothing looks out of place. It is all part of the work, but it takes so much time and my eyes get so dead. But it makes it look pretty and professional. I make no mistakes in that sense.
What is your favorite part about doing your book covers?
I love the mock-up phases because I can make 3 different designs for a book within the same aspect, but with different interpretations. I can go all out with, for instance, full blackout pages on the interior formatting, or adding simple icons, or doing a background illustration like a Starry Night. And it's always funny to see which one the author likes best and in which way I best interpret it. So it's a bit of a test to myself of like, hey, let me get as creative as possible and see what sticks.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it does. Because most of the time, because I work with the offer, I just get all the information and I get to do what I want. And then I do what they want when they give the feedback. But it's still a little bit of me I can put into every single design. which I'm really happy with, because who else gets to put their stuff in books all across the world? That is my favorite part of the job.
Can you tell me one or two things that authors should not do when they approach their book cover designer?
Well, as mentioned before, don't get in touch with them a week before you need something. Be in touch with them on time, please. Just for the fact that we don't want to disappoint you and you can get your stuff on time. That is one. Then a second thing is allow yourself to be happily surprised and to take the advice. Most importantly, be clear in what you want to have changed when the time for that moment is. Don't have a fully finished cover and then be like, because then you get additional cost and it's a bit sad for the artist as well because they have to do double work. So most importantly, get in touch in time and be clear with your feedback and do it at the appropriate step of the design process. It Of course you can't always know when you find out later, but try to give your feedback before all the little details are worked in to save yourself the trouble and the artist. We love working with you though. The only thing I still want to say is that I know that we're all talking about getting a cover designer, getting an interior formatter, but don't be afraid to do it yourself as well.
Really?
If you're capable of it. I do have a disclaimer about this though. If you do want to do it yourself, do the research, look at the big five publishing houses. What do they do? What can you take from them? What kind of inspiration? Especially with interior formatting, if you follow the basic fundamentals of design, you can see from all the big books out there that you probably have in your bookcase. If you follow those rules, it will look professional. Covers are a bit harder because you will need to have photo bashing or illustration skills. But interior formatting, if you're good with Word and you can Google a lot of stuff, you can make your own interior formatting. It might not have all the amazing illustrations that somebody else could do, but it can be a budget saver. Just be sure that if you are worried about it not looking good, have someone else look over it. If they think it's professional, it can be good to go. If you're still worried, you can let somebody else do it, but don't be afraid to test it out yourself. You don't have to give everything out of hand. If you don't, try it yourself. You can always let someone else do it, but at least you've given it a try.
And then you'll be able to say, oh, look, this is what I tried. This is what I really liked. This is what I didn't like. Can you just make it look better?
Well, not only that, because interior formatting doesn't have to be hard if you keep to the fundamentals. You can have a book that you can actually publish yourself. So you can also just use your own PDFs if you follow the good rules. Just make sure it is up to par. Like if you have done it yourself and you realize this kind of still looks like shit, then get it professional. But I mean, interior formatting is something that can be learned because it's just text. You should be able to do it. It might just take you some time. If you don't find the time worth it, get the professional. But if you do it yourself, do the research and you can make something that's quite nice. Don't be afraid to do it.
Fantastic.
I have a lot of videos on my page to tell people how to do it themselves because I am aware of the lack of budgets and the passion to put it out there in the world. When I started out doing this stuff and I had nowhere to find information, a lot of this was just trial and error over the years. I'm now 140 books in. I remember my first design and it got published, but God, I look back at it and I'm like, I can do so much better now. If that got published and I was able to learn how to do it, that means everybody can. I'm happy to provide service or tip videos or knowledge that I didn't have 4 years ago because I don't want everybody else to have to go through that issue.
Where can people find you so that they can watch your videos and learn how to do it themselves or hire you?
Most often you can find me on TikTok or Instagram on rubre.art. That is rubre.art. And I'm also able to find me on my website, which you can find through my link tree or through rubreart.com. It is all my info, it is all my portfolio. If you just want inspiration for nice interior formatting or covers, you can also look there because there are quite some nice ideas for you to try out or, as said, to hire me, which I would love to. But that is always the cliche. So if you need help with your interior formatting to do it by yourself, or if you would rather have me do it for you to save you the trouble, I would love both. You can text me on Instagram or my website. I am available anywhere.
One last question. If you could give homework to the writers who are listening to this to help them along with either their book cover design journey or their writing journey, what would that homework be?
My homework would be a two-step assignment. First, look at bestsellers within your genre. If it's for interior formatting or covers, look them up, make a list of 5 that match the genre of your book and the same style you're doing. That's step 1. Step 2 is replicating what they're doing. Try making a cover in the same style as theirs, but adapt it for your book, or do interior formatting in the same way. Take your favorite elements of the 5 best practices you chose before and try to make that into a design for yourself. See what overlaps, see what's different, and learn from that.
Thank you so much. Go write your books. See you later.